Okay, let's dive in. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? We're talking about a book on finance nearly 100 years old,
1923, yeah.
and it's still showing up on must-read lists for serious investors today. That longevity, it's pretty striking.
It really is. Jack Schwager, big name in the trading world, he calls Reminiscences of a Stock Operator a true classic,
Right, but he goes further, doesn't he? He predicts it'll still be relevant at the end of this century.
which is quite a statement. It suggests there's something really fundamental, really timeless baked into it.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing in this deep dive. We're looking at excerpts from Reminiscences,
Hmm.
trying to figure out, why does it have this legendary status? And maybe more importantly, what can you, listening right now, actually get from it?
Well, I think the fact it has lasted tells us something important about markets, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That maybe while the tools change, the core game,
The human element.
precisely, that stays pretty consistent.
Okay, so to really get it, we probably need to start at the beginning with the author, Edwin Lefèvre. These excerpts, they show he basically grew up in the market.
Yeah, started as a quotation board boy, like right after grammar school.
Imagine that, a teenager just thrown into the constant flow of stock prices.
It's a different kind of education, isn't it? Not academic theory, but just raw market data, day in, day out.
And he wasn't just passively watching. Apparently he had this knack for numbers.
Oh, yeah. The book mentions he zipped through 3 years of arithmetic in 1 year.
Wow.
Mental math was just, easy for him. So when those numbers were flying around the brokerage office.
He wasn't overwhelmed. He just processed them.
Right. He had a gift for figures, as he puts it.
It makes you wonder about intuition in trading, doesn't it? That kind of ground level experience plus natural talent.
Hmm.
Maybe that's more powerful sometimes than formal training alone.
Could be. He was focused on what the prices were doing before he even thought about the why.
That's a great way to put it. He actually says the quotes weren't really about money to him initially.
Just numbers.
Yeah, just numbers changing constantly. He was fascinated by the movement, the shifts, before he even cared about the dollars involved.
5 hours a day plus Saturdays. Just soaking that in.
That sheer volume of observation.
You'd have to start seeing things, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Patterns emerging just from the constant exposure. It's like a live study, almost detached.
Which brings us to why we think this is valuable for listeners. It doesn't matter if you're deep into finance or just, curious.
Mm.
Lefèvre's starting point gives this really unique ground floor view. It's before all the crazy derivatives and high-frequency trading. It's just numbers moving, supply and demand playing out.
Exactly. And understanding that basic dynamic is key, no matter what market you're in today. Because the people driving those movements, well, human psychology hasn't exactly had a major upgrade, has it?
No. So, okay, this is where it gets really cool. He wasn't just watching blankly
Mm-hmm.
because he remembered the numbers so well.
He started seeing repetitions.
Yeah? Patterns. How prices tended to act before a big move up or down. He talks about stocks having habits.
Parallel cases, I think he calls them. His first guides.
It's basically early technical analysis, isn't it? But all in his head.
Totally. He's studying past performance to guess future moves, but without charts. He says he carried the dope sheets in my mind. What a phrase.
I love that. Just
Yeah.
mental tracking of market behavior. He was, 14?
Around that, yeah. Already testing his ideas, seeing if stocks behave the same way on different days.
He says, my only guide was their past performances. I looked for stock prices to run on form. I'd clocked them. It's like he's timing the market's pulse.
And that's still lesson number 1 for so many traders, isn't it?
Yeah.
Study the history, look at the charts, understand how the prices acted before.
Right. Past performance isn't a crystal ball, obviously.
But it gives you context. It shows you possibilities based on similar setups.
And this leads him to that huge realization incredibly early on.
The big one.
There is nothing new in Wall Street.
Yeah, there can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills.
Think about that. A teenager figuring out something that grizzled veterans still remind themselves of.
Because it comes back to people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Speculation is driven by hope, fear, greed. Those feelings don't change.
They just repeat in cycles.
And if you recognize that, maybe you won't get quite so caught up in the mania or the panic. It connects to the bigger picture.
Okay, so he's seeing patterns, making mental predictions, but he doesn't stop there. He starts writing things down.
Right, the little book.
But, and this is key, it wasn't a fantasy trading journal. He's very clear about that.
No imaginary transactions.
It wasn't about pretending to be rich.
What was it about then?
Accuracy, his own accuracy. Were his observations correct? Were his predictions lining up with what actually happened?
Ah, okay. So it's about refining his method, like a scientist testing a hypothesis.
Exactly. He called it a record of his hits and misses. The goal was to check if he was reading the situation right.
How did he actually do it?
He describes it pretty clearly. He'd watch a stock swings, figure out its typical behavior before it made a big move, write down what he expected next based purely on past performance, and then
Check the tape.
check the actual ticker tape to see if he was right. That's how he learned to read the message of the tape.
That phrase, the message of the tape,
Yeah.
it's about understanding what the immediate price action and volume are telling you about supply and demand, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's like he figured out that what was happening with the price was, at least initially, more important than why.
The immediate reality versus the underlying story.
Right. At 14, he wasn't digging into company earnings or news. He was just watching the dance of the numbers and learning its rhythm.
Which leads to a really interesting question for everyone listening, actually.
Yeah.
What tape are you watching? In your job, your industry, your hobbies. What patterns are you seeing? What behaviors repeat?
That's a great challenge because this isn't just about stocks, it's about observation. So the practical takeaway here, start paying closer attention, like Lefèvre.
Yeah.
Identify those recurring patterns around you.
Track the past performances in your area. See if you can start anticipating what comes next.
Because as he said, there's nothing new when it comes to basic human or system behaviors, right?
And maybe take a leaf out of his book, literally jot down your observation.
Us.
Not to, track imaginary success.
But to check your own perception. Am I seeing this clearly? Was my prediction accurate?
That kind of deliberate practice sharpens your focus incredibly well over time.
Absolutely. And for anyone wanting to explore this more after listening, we'll have stuff in the show notes.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, like a quick timeline of his early days, some of those killer quotes, speculation is as old as the hills is definitely going in.
Gotta have that one.
And obviously a link to the book itself, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. Plus maybe a prompt, ask people to share their own tape reading experiences online. Be interesting to see what people notice.
It would. It's just amazing how that foundation, pure observation, pattern recognition, self-correction, built such a legendary career.
It really hammers home the power of just paying attention, really paying attention.
And learning directly from what's happening in front of you.
Okay, so here's something to chew on after we wrap up. A final thought.
Lay it on us.
With all our algorithms, AI, data feeds, everything we have today, are the fundamental human drivers of markets fear, greed, hope, herd behavior really any different from what that teenager saw on the quotation board almost 100 years ago?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Makes you think about how much or how little human psychology really changes even when everything else around it does. Something to consider anyway.